Deliberation yesterday, and I think that it's important for us to ensure that we don't lose the main basis of our being here today. The reason why I understand this conference was involved is so that we be transparent and sincere. Approach issues with oneness. Yesterday, we were very sincere to ourselves, and we came to some resolutions that I thought, was going to drive us forward. We recognize the position and the presence of the Mining Act, and I think we took a consensus position yesterday that there are salient portions of that Mining Act that we should work towards recommending changes. We know that to change anything that is in the law is not something you can achieve in 24 hours, not even in months. But we know that it is important for us to, because the direction we took was that the purpose of our gathering yesterday was that there are conflicts that have been observed in states. In implementing this Mining Act, there are times where there are conflicting tendencies from what comes from the Federal Ministry of Mines and what happens at the state level and at the host community level. Most state governments have set up ministries that are in charge of solid minerals, of which Benue State is one of such states. And we realize that, we have a situation where basically lands in the state belongs to the state, and the state governors, issue rights of occupancies to these lands. But we also know that from the Mining Act, there are resources that are embedded below the surface of this land, which has been invested to the federal government. And sometimes somebody may have been given a right of occupancy to this land, and at the federal level, they also go and give, title to the mineral resources below the surface. And there is this provision in the Mining Act that says there is priority to somebody who has a mining license over the other right. And sometimes this leads to practical conflict. And we thought that we were making inputs that should resolve how these things should be settled. The issue of consent that the gentleman here raised, we discussed it yesterday, and we put it in that.
Yes.
So the idea, excuse me, sir. It is missing today.
So yes, the idea is this.
Yes, sir.
The point I made earlier was that you have listened to the presenter or rapporteur of that group. Was that the true reflection of what transpired yesterday? Yes or no? Excuse me. If you say no, then all you need to do was to rise up and say no. There was this recommendation that looks like A, B, C, D. And it was deliberated, and this was the conclusion. So we take it.
Thank you, sir.
So all this long lecture, the push and pull we are getting from the states, the calls we are receiving from the respective state chief executives. On one hand, the Constitution says there is exclusivity of minerals to the federal government. On the other hand, the land tenure policy says the state governor, the land reposes to the state governor. Fine. But underlying that says anywhere the mineral is discovered, that right to the state government, gives way to the federal right. Now, the purpose of this council as a whole is to draw the state and mining communities closer to the federal government, to find an amicable working relationship. We cannot amend the Constitution, at least for now. The land tenure policy has been a matter of great concern to all, at least for now. So until such a time that either the Constitution or the land tenure policy is amended, mining must continue. But for as long as the federal government, mining is as an exclusive function of the federal government, to that extent, the states have to respect it. And in respecting it, they don't have to quarrel with it. Because quarreling with it means to go ultra-vires against the constitution. You understand? Now, the fact that you are in the state and the mineral is in your state doesn't give you title to the mineral. It belongs to. If we say that, how would you imagine the man in Akwa Ibom, the community in Akwa Ibom, how would they react, for instance, with the oil? Are we not now talking about the same thing that other people of this country denied oil producing areas? You understand?
Yes, yes.
Resource control, right?
It's not. That is not where we're going.
Now,
That is not where we're going, Mr. Chairman.
So within the context of this arrangement,
yes,
we must find a workable relationship between the Federal Ministry of Mines or at least the licensing authority within the context of mineral governance, the state government, the mining community. Suffice it to say, whatever you feel at the state level, that somebody from Abuja or from any part of the country will come to your state with a license and he wants to mine a particular area in your community. You from the state are also a stranger in some parts of the community in your own state.
But not like the person in Abuja.
No, that is what you see because it favors you.
The person in Abuja.
What would the local government chairman say? And what would the community head, those people who traditionally own the land, what would they say? The governor will quote the land tenure policy, right? And the federal government will quote the mineral policy. So where are we? The earlier we find an amicable working relationship, the better. And that is why we are here. And that was why that group was dedicated to finding these things. And that is why I asked that gentleman to couch that. But because let me tell you, by the time the ministers and the commissioners sit here tomorrow, that will be the first thing they look at. So I want him to couch it the way it was deliberated and agreed here yesterday. Next, please.
Okay, for paper 2, illegal mining and export challenges, we call on Mr. Patrick Ojeka, who is the Director, Artisanal and Small-Scale Mining, to please come and give his presentation. Let's put our hands together for him, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am standing in as the coordinator of the rapporteur of the second session that dwells on illegal mining and export challenges. Prior preceding our deliberation, there was a lead presentation by Dr. Ebota that elaborated on government policy focus in establishing a single export platform in the country for all mineral exports. We can understand that this topic, bearing direct impact on the operators, gingered a lot of excitement, and everybody was up and doing. But in a nutshell, members of the group unanimously felt that that project the government is envisaging was not to their best interest, and therefore felt that it should not scale. Or rather, if government wishes to go ahead with that program, then there should be a guarantee, or government set up a local market where the premium is paid, and then government can do whatever it cares with the material. But they are not in any way, by any law, committed to convey their materials and hand over to a third party for the final transaction. Some of the recommendations that came from the group include that government should establish desk posts and necessary infrastructure that will check the quantity of materials at every exit point in the country. That officers of the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development should be posted there to work in conjunction with other government agencies that monitor export of commodities from Nigeria. Another area of concern to members was the outright absence of members of key critical agencies of government like the customs and immigration that were completely absent, and suggested that subsequently for every of the vision of the council transmitting into policy and then facilitated must have these key critical agencies of government in attendance. We also look at the issue of value addition, and recommendations that came include introduction and establishment of modular plants to process the raw of mines that are being exported with other valuable mineral components within, which are not taken into consideration when the pricing is being conducted. Government need to adequately fund the minerals and mining sector for all of these activities to be properly taken care of. Another suggestion come to light on the issue of the establishment of host communities intelligence units. In other words, they are craving for the introduction of whistleblowing. If you are a miner and a conjugal operation is encroaching on your tenement and you cannot voice it out, simple, go the whistleblowing chat so that your matter can be taken up. Similarly, host community, the traditional people, are all part of this idea that can always report some of these adverse activities in the community. This was brought up, backed by an experience that exists in some countries in the world where mining is prominent, that there is what they call jealousy reportage. But we call it in Nigeria the whistleblowing system. They also suggested that all resources, minerals that are being exported, that there is a strong need for to ascertain the source. The source of this mineral by state, so that the appropriate royalties can be passed on. In a nutshell, those were the recommendations, some of the recommendations. There were very many, and we feel strongly that because this bears on the operators, the salient recommendations be taken up at this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ojeka. From what I have here, the recommendations and resolutions that is before me, they are all actually very abstracted. I would want your committee to sit down and give some elaborative, put some flesh in the recommendations. That is in addition to whatever the plenary will now come up with as their observation or correction. You have had the rapporteur of the second group on illegal mining and export challenges in Nigeria, correct? Are there any observations, additions or subtractions on the recommendations, resolution and recommendation that was reached yesterday? If there is any, please. I see some answer. Well, it appears that they have done justice to that topic yesterday. So we move forward. Madam, carry on.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, thank you, sir. For Group 3, which is on mines field security challenges, we have Engineer Salim Salam, who is the Director of Mines Environmental Compliance at the Ministry, to please come and make a presentation.
Good morning, all. I'm presenting a report of the thematic team of the mine security challenges on social and environmental challenges and concerns. The thematic session took place Tuesday, yesterday, on the 12th September of 2017 at this conference hall. There were over 100 participants at the thematic group. The discussion commenced with an overview of environmental and social challenges by the Director of Mines Environmental Compliance Department in the Ministry of Mines and State Development. And this was followed by a paper presentation on minefield security and challenges by Inspector General of Police, ably represented by an AIG, Alhaji Taiwo Lakam, Assistant Director in the Assistant Inspector General in the charge of operations. During the session, the following challenges were identified with mining activities in the country. One, the communal and religious conflicts in the Middle Belt region of Nigeria, an area known to be richly endowed with minerals. Conflicts or threat of conflict emanating from claims to rights to royalties paid by mining companies to the host communities. Illegal mining activities without state permission or the grants of titles. Failure by companies to honor their community development agreements. Most workers in the mines are not professionals. High cost of producing environmental impact assessment studies, which discourage compliance by mineral title holders. Lack of clear distinction between categories of mining in the terms of their environmental and social obligations. What this one means is that there is no difference between what ESM does, what small scale mining does, and what large scale mining does. The resistance to operate in areas outside their states by miners, the multiple regulation by Federal Ministry of Environment as well as NESRIA, weak policy and regulatory enforcement of Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, and issue surrounding or bordering on legacies of previous mining activities. Accordingly, the group came up with the following recommendations. The government should give back to mine host communities by way of providing some infrastructures. This was backed up with the fact that even though we have CDA and provision is there for development of host communities, government should also give in certain things to the host community. Government to review the cost of producing EIA studies. We know the cost is not pegged by government, but what the group is suggesting is that government should come to an assistance by way of putting something on ground to reduce the cost. Need to clear decision between different categories of mining with respect to the environmental and social obligations. That small scale miners should not do the same thing as